Hi, me again. It's your boy, P to the H to the 1 phone. I'm just gonna go over some settings here on this, generator, CTRando.com. So, um, first off, we've got our, presets here. You can click Beginner Settings, Dungeon Shuffle, FF1R Winter 2025. That's kinda like a standard flag set. It's what we used to demonstrate the randomizer, the other day on that marathon. So you can just click one of these, hit choose file, upload your ROM. It'll give you a seed. Uh, but what we're going to do, we're going to go into the builder here. So you can click on your presets here. It'll load, the settings for those. We can go in and alter them with all these tabs here. I'm going to try to go through each one, see what they do. We're going to start with the baseline of the standard one. So experience scale, tech point scale, self-explanatory. Any rewards from combat, they're going to be multiplied. You can set it to half, set it to 10. We usually put it at like 4 or 5. TP scale, I like 6. That usually gets you to like your max text towards like level 35, 40. I feel like that feels pretty good. Split TP. So what this is if you're in a party solo or a two-person party, rather than getting say 100 experience with 3 characters, if you're solo, you'll get 300 experience with 1 character or 150 with 2 characters. Like you'll get the same amount. It'll just be multiplied, put on like the 1 or 2 characters you've got. So it can be good like early on in the run when you're solo. Get some good levels going. Make things a little bit easier, especially in a seed where like just can't find any recruits at all. So fixed TP doubling. We've got that on. TP doubling is a vanilla bug where if say you've got 5 tech points um, until your next tech and you get 10, you'll get your next tech and then it'll go ahead and apply 10 more tech points towards the next tech. So if you fight something that gives a lot, you can get like 2, 3, 4, 5 techs at once, just because it keeps doubling every time you learn a tech. XP penalty level. Um, all these settings here, they kind of roll together. The penalty level, we set it to 45 here. At level 45, you're gonna see an increase to the amount of experience needed for levels. It'll go up by 25% each level. That's this setting here. And your level cap is 50. You can still level after that. It'll be set to like 65,000 experience per level. So it's not really realistic to get much higher. So we kind of use that to put like a cap on our power. Once you get above like level 50, the game becomes a lot easier. You start to cap out on your magic defense, things like that. So we try to keep it in a pretty good feeling range. If you want more of a challenge, you can set it to like 40. You could set the penalty higher. So once you hit 40, like your leveling really slows down. Um, Gonna go down here, boss experience factor. Um, Basically, what that is, you take this experience scale, say 4, boss experience factor, whatever the boss gives for experience, can multiply that like by 2. So effectively, a boss gives 8 times normal experience. So if you want like say bosses to like be really beneficial, you'll just turn this up. If you want to lean more to like grinding normal enemies, you can turn it down. Yeah. Anyway, mid boss factor, same kind of deal. Mid bosses, there's like 6 of them. One of them is farmable, the Gato spot at the fair. So if you want like viable farming off of that spot, you could turn this up. You could use that as like a fallback grind or something. We don't normally play with this much. Normalized boss experience right here. Sorry. What this does, it sets it to where every single boss, like at whatever scaling level you're at, give like 1 level worth of experience. If you're at that same level, so say you're level 20, the boss is level 20. Turn that on, you'll get 1 level from every single boss. And of course, it's multiplied by experience scale. So, you turn it up to 4 experience, say 1.5 times boss experience factor, you'll get about 6 levels per boss. So you can kind of balance the game around that as opposed to like worrying about, does this boss give very much experience or not? Like Zeal, for example, gives nothing, but if you turn that on, it will. So drop enemy pool. That's basically, you know, do we want the vanilla enemies that drop things to still drop things? Do we want all enemies to drop things? If we set it to all, we can use this drop rate slider. If we set it to all, put the drop rate at, say, 33%. 1 in 3 enemies will drop something. Drop reward pool, shuffle, vanilla random, a vanilla self-explanatory shuffle. It takes things that are drops in the vanilla game and just puts them on different enemies. Random, it takes any item in the game and puts it on, whatever enemy drops. So you could see like prism specs dropping from a rubble or something. You can see like power tabs from a Naga head. Who knows? It's a little chaotic. Usually, if we do random, we set the drop rate pretty low because it can get out of hand pretty quick. So mark dropping enemies. You've seen a video of this. You've probably seen like some enemies have like C or D at the end of their name when you fight them. The D stands for drop. It means they drop an item. Charm enemy pool, kind of the same as the drop stuff. Shuffle random, all that. Mark charmable enemies, same thing. It'll have a C on it. Tech options. So you got vanilla, tech order. So that's self-explanatory. Random order of techs. MP order. So this, like, every single tech you learn is going to be more expensive than the one before it, or the same price. So you'll get your ultimate techs last. You'll get some healing mixed in with some utility at the start. A little bit of magic. And MP type, that's more in like the spirit of the vanilla game. You've got, like, for example, Frog. He starts with a heal in the vanilla game. He'll start with the heal here. That's by MP and by type. So heals will always be in the same place. Damage will always be in the same place in the tech list. Utility will always be in the same place. So you get, like, say, Marl, for example. She's always going to have a heal for her first tech. Her third tech will always be, some form of damage. Her sixth tech will also be some kind of damage. So she'll max out her damage potential earlier than others. What that potential is kind of depends. This one here, tech damage. So vanilla, pretty self-explanatory. Shuffle, it takes the MP cost of every damaging tech in the game and healing tech. Puts them in a blender, assigns them at random, to different techs. So you might get like a flare that costs 2. You might get a leap slash that costs 20, and basic idea is the more it costs, the better it is. So you see a 20 MP leap slash, it's going to be one of the strongest techs in the game. You just kind of lean into that, build around it. Dual techs also inherit the damage, the cost. So, you'll see some interesting combinations. Early game, you might use something you normally wouldn't. Late game, you might use something you normally wouldn't. That's kind of one of the big features of the randomizer. It's in Jets of Time too, although to, I guess, a less robust extent. It's got, more features here. It's more built into like the core gameplay. Random, that's generally stronger than shuffle. It just rolls a value between 1 and 20 for each tech. So it'll average probably close to like 10 MP per tech. So if you want like a power fantasy kind of seed, you could do like random tech order, random tech damage. You'll you'll find some strong stuff pretty quick. So this you can set like after the text roll, you can do like an additional kind of shake up. Like you can set it to where texts normally they roll from 1 MP to 20 MP. You could set it to minimum 2, so everything rolls from 2 to 40. And the power does increase in proportion with this. So you could set like say you want to run where I don't know you want to lean into auto attacks more. You could set the tech damage lower, and then they'll be a little less useful. You'll have to do some more auto attacking. Really think about things. Okay, so preserve magic. Um, Basically, what this is like in the vanilla game, uh, your star techs, your lightnings, your lightning two, luminaire. They're going to be just in the same position as they were in the vanilla game. So you'll get like on Chrono, your third tech will always be a magic tech. Um, Same thing for Luca, Marl. Chrono's last tech would always be magic. Luca's would always be magic. That kind of thing. It could potentially mess up like the other tech order stuff. We don't usually use it. Black hole minimum factor. So the minimum, like if you roll like a 1 MP black hole, it's gonna have a 20% kill chance. Then for every MP cost above that, it'll add 4%. So if you get like 20 minimum black hole plus 10 MP cost, that's gonna be a 60% to kill black hole, up to 20 where it's 100%. Good for killing certain enemies. Works on Son of Sun, which is really nice. You can kill the flames, make that fight really easy. Okay, so show full tech list. That's hard to say for some reason. We usually keep this on. Basically, what it is instead of only seeing what the next tech is, you can just see the whole list from the moment you get a character. So you can kind of plan your party around that. Like you recruit a frog, you see his last tech is frog squash, costs 25 MP or something. You're gonna want to look for like flare, gold rock, something you can really lean into to really leverage that. Just a really helpful thing, so you don't like invest into a character for 2 hours and then realize they're not worth anything. Balance tech MPs. So what this does, um, it makes sure that no one character can get two 20 cost techs. Distributes them. There's four 20 costs, and then there's 117 and a few 15s. So every character has at least one 15 MP tech. And if they don't have a 20, they also are guaranteed to have one other tech that costs at least 8. So you kind of get like a more fair distribution of like the high powered stuff across every character. Kind of vanilla game in that sense. Um, Aside from Marl, everybody else does have a good tech at the end. Before this existed, we would have situations where like one character would get three 20 cost techs, everybody else would be garbage. And while that was interesting, I just prefer, you know, having the party variety rather than being forced into like the one character that actually is worth anything. So scaling options, there's a lot here. Um, so in these settings, we've got it set to progression. There is logic depth. That's largely untested. There's none. I don't think anybody ever uses that. I don't even know what it does, honestly. So progression, it's like the bread and butter. It'll basically follow this. So if you kill a boss, the enemy level increases by 3. You set it to, whatever you want. We like 3 just because it sets kind of a good cadence for, the power growth. Levels per quest. That's basically a quest is anything that would give a key item, essentially, or it could be an objective. So to me, it's a little redundant. I keep that at 0. I put +1 on key items, +3 on objectives, +1 per character. Per character, it's a little questionable because as soon as you start out, you have one character. So if you set it to 5, you'll be level 1. Enemies will be level 5. It could be a very frustrating experience. So in my mind, completing objectives, killing bosses, that's kind of a sign that you're, engaging in combat, leveling up. So that's where I try to get the scaling. So dynamic scale Lavos. Um, it's kind of a hotly debated topic among like the couple of people that care. Um, if it's on, Lavos will scale, to the scaling level. So if you get there early enough, you can fight like a level 20 Lavos. I'd say generally it's a decent bit easier than the max power one. We kind of gone back and forth on it, but we just keep it off usually. We like that end game challenge rather than just finishing the seed as soon as we can. We like a little spice to it. All right. Defense safety minimum level. Essentially, you have some bosses, Hecarim, mutants, mud imp, things of that nature, where their physical defense is very high, which is a problem. Um, especially starting with a single character. You've got certain modes like entrance rando, where you may be forced to do that boss very early on, no other options. So what this does, any enemy below level 10, of course you can set this to whatever you want. They will have regular physical defense, so you can just kill them with, physical stuff, even if it's not a physical boss. And then after level 10 and up until the safety max level 30, set it to 99 if you want. Nobody's going to judge you. The defense of that boss will increase from here to here. When it hits here, it'll be at like the normal defense the boss has. So, say level 30, you're going to need magic to kill Hecarim, Giga Mutant, whatever. Um, Obstacle safety level, similar concept. Any boss that's under level 30, you can set it to what you stay at 30 usually. If they have obstacle as a tech, it'll be a single target up until it hits the whole party. So like Mega Mutant example. At level say 15, you've got 2 party members, no status protection. If you get both of them confused, you might very well die. That's a frustrating experience. The bosses were built, with these protections in mind. So we just kind of have a little buffer there for safety. Um, so enemy HP scale, it's just a multiplier for how much HP the boss gets, or the enemy, I should say. So say you want, normal enemies to be significantly harder, you can bump that up to 2. You want to just one hit everything, put it to 0.05, whatever. I would just keep it at 1 usually. Boss HP scale, if you want like a breezy thing, might maybe set it to like 70%. You want like a slog for some reason, you're sick in the head or just, not worried about time. You set it to 2. Static HP scale Lavos. Um, just whether you apply it to Lavos or not. Usually don't. Element safety level is an interesting one. So you've got bosses, Red Knight, Nisbel to certain enemy types. The shock mechanic, water mechanic on Red Knight. If they're below 30 or whatever level you set it to, any magic will do. So you could shock the boss with a water. You could reduce Red Knight's defense with lightning. It all works up until 30. So another kind of soft lock protection thing. So these mods, Millennial Fair mod, basically every location with enemies. You set this to say 13. I don't know. I just landed on that. If you walk into Millennial Fair at level 1 scaling, it'll become level 14 scaled. So you can kind of arbitrarily make certain places harder. Chrono Trial mod, for example, the prison, you've only got 2 party members, so it's inherently kind of hard check. You can set it to like -5 to offset that difficulty. Give the 2 characters a little bit of an easier time. Pretty straightforward. I will say, increasing it by more than like 3, it does add significant challenge. So I kind of be careful with it. If you want to make like Ocean Palace super hard, or you know Black Omen or whatever, more power to you. All right. So logic options. First option here, additional key items. By default, this is on here, the upgraded Masamune. With the regular checks, there's 1 extra spot. So I just put that in there. Everybody else does too. If you take this out, that's just going to appear in a chest somewhere. So you might be like doing Cathedral, you open a chest, hit the Masamune. If you like playing that way, great. It is an interesting shakeup for sure. But if you like, the structure of key items being in key item spots, just keep that on there. So what you can also do, pretty much any of these items here, say, you're building a mode, you really want Chrono to shine or something, you can put Rainbow in there, then add like a, say, Ozzy's Fort, whatever. So then Ozzy's Fort will become a check, and one of these checks will have a rainbow instead of a key item. So we build some modes around that. We'll put in like Terra Arm, Nova Armor, Vigil Hat, Haste Helm, all kinds of really good stuff. And then we'll add like random extra checks. So you'll get like ultimate gear mixed in with the key item pool. And, have some fun with that. There's no mandate that you have like any one check. So you can take this all off. Then suddenly, all your key items, they're going to have to go somewhere. And with no mandatory key item spots, it can be like in a chest, any tab spot, anything like that. Kind of like a Chrono Sanity kind of mode. There are certain checks you want to exclude from that, unless you're really diligent. Places you can't go back to, like Magus's Castle, Tyranno Lair. There's some other things. If you're not sure on a good list of places not to have key items, we've got one. So incentive spots, we don't really use that, but it's kind of for Chrono Sanity, I think. Like there's like an increased chance that, like, say, I don't know, Protodome Portal Tab will have a key item compared to other spots. Excluded spots, that's kind of what I was talking about with like places you can't go back to if you do key items in chess. Magus Castle, that's a big one. Sunken Desert, Tyranno Lair. Sunken Desert, I think you might be able to go back to, but that's kind of a holdover. If you want, take all these off. You just, make sure you get all the chests when you go there. Decay factor, don't really touch that. Um, but typical Chrono Sanity stuff. If a place already has a key item, reduce the chance that it has another. Starter rewards, basically, by default, that's epoch. So what this is anything you select here, you'll have access to at the start. So say you like, the style of Jets of Time. You can make the desert accessible from the beginning. What else we got here? You could have flight from the beginning. So you just go to your epoch and you'll be able to fly from the start. Um, say, pendant charge if you want to have those chests accessible from the beginning. You could do like starter gear, like give yourself a steel saber, iron bow, so on and so forth. You want to do something silly, maybe start with a berserker, maybe start silver stud, bandana, amulet for safety, frenzy band. So I mean, you can give yourself like a starter pack of things. You can also just sell things. Just a sec. All right, I'm back. So so like say you want like an open world, go anywhere from the start kind of run. You can add on Last Village Portal. You can add on like Omen, Present, add the pillars to End of Time, add the End of Time, add the Future, add the Dark Ages. So there, you'll have your flying epoch. You can go to any time period. You can go to End of Time. And you can kind of build a mode like around that idea, like maybe stick a bunch of goodies all over the world, so you're not just like going from check to check to check. Or if you want to do that, do that. Out of logic starter rewards, pretty much the same thing, except it won't be factored into logic. So um, most obvious example I can think of, like say you want to start with flight, but for whatever reason you don't want like a flight gated check to be like a mandatory thing. As an example, like you're doing a mode where the scaling's vanilla, whatever. You don't want to force somebody through Sun Palace at like level 10 to progress. You just throw that in the out of logic, so the game won't realize that you have flight, and it won't force you into one of those spots. A little more advanced of a flag. We don't use this for much right now, but you could build a mode out of it. So hard Lavos end boss. Another thing we kind of go back and forth on. Typically, if we do unscaled Lavos, we'll probably put this on. If it's scaled Lavos, we usually keep it off. So what this is, in the Ocean Palace, you get the ruby knife. You get the ability to open a sealed door, whether through pendant charge or magus or whatever. You can go through the Ocean Palace, fight the twin boss, and at the end, you can either fight hard Lavos, or you can just die him, or die to him, sorry, or skip it, whatever. If you choose to fight him, he's very hard. It's that point in the vanilla game where a certain story thing happens, you're forced to lose. Very strong boss. Does like 1,000 damage per attack, basically. Very fast, 30,000 HP. So, without scaling applied to that, obviously a very, very challenging boss. If you can get through it, your party presumably is strong enough to do the other two forms that are significantly easier. So it just rolls credits there. A little bit of a time saver, a little more incentive to go to that boss. Try the try the ultimate challenge kind of thing. On scaled Lavos, though, it's a little bit easier. So we tend to keep that off for that flag set. So you have to do the other two forms. Boats of Time. So it's kind of a new thing. It's not really vanilla inspired whatsoever, but it's fun. Basically what it is, the fairies in 1000 AD. Normally they'll take you from truce to poor. Highly pointless. I don't know why anybody would ever do that, aside from just having fun with it. What this does, so by default, we've added a destination to those boats. Chorus 1000. That's where like the carpenter is, where Toma's grave is. All that good stuff. So if you turn this on, if you have the gate key, you can also go to like 600 AD destinations. Now you've got like the Giant's Claw, you've got Aussie Fort, you've got 600 AD Chorus, and that'll all be in logic. So, you find a gate key, maybe what you need is in Giant's Claw, take the boats there before you have flight. Maybe Aussie's Fort is the answer. Hard to say. Maybe you want to go to the Northern Ruins, do all that before flight. There you go. We usually keep that on. It's fun enough. Without that on, gate key is like one purpose. It's not super exciting. Boss rando options. Pretty straightforward, I think. So vanilla bosses are just where they are in the normal game. Shuffle takes every single boss and just puts them somewhere else. If you're coming from Jets of Time, we're gonna have additional bosses: Aussie Trio, Queen Zeal, the first form. I don't know if there's anything else. Maybe. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much what that is. Random. So instead of taking every boss and moving it, there's just a pool of whatever bosses you want. So say you don't want to fight Mega Mutants, we'll just go ahead and put them in the vanilla spots. Whatever. So now they'll pull from hold on. Sorry, boss pulls down here. I'm not looking. So basically you got Dalton plus, Flea plus, so on and so forth. It'll pull from any one of these bosses. You could get, three fleas. You could get 0 Terra Mutants, whatever. It's just, spawning bosses randomly from this list at every spot. Mid boss pool. So all these mid bosses, they're shuffled. Got Dalton at the Zeal Palace, Crawley in the sewers, Slash and Flea at Aussie Fort, Atropos at Genodome, Gato at the fair. So any one of these 6 bosses could be in any one of those 6 places. So kind of the main implications for that. The fair is a repeatable boss. So if you get like a good one, Crawley, he drops mid ethers in vanilla. Super Slash, Flea plus, pretty good farm. Dalton, not to be trifled with, especially if you don't have magic yet, because his evasion is super high. Atropos, if you have Robo, you kill her, get the ribbon, get +3 speed, 10 magic defense. Very important to make that character worthwhile. Yeah, that's what that is. Shop options. So shop inventory randomization. That's just the items that are contained in a shop. So vanilla, everything will be, what it is in the base game. Shuffle, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. Just move stuff around. Full random, just any shop in the game will just pick from a list of every item that's available for sale. So you might get like a lot of good gear for sale, for example, but there might also be like the possibility that you never find shelters for sale, never find revives for sale. Whereas a tiered random, that's kind of like the default. Um, you'll see a little bit more consumables. They'll be the most common thing you find. You'll find low to mid tier gear more frequently. More rare will be like ultimate gear, but it's still there. You can have key items in the pool. They will be a lower chance, so you're not going to find like a key item in every shop, but still a cute thing. If you have 65,000 gold and you really want a gate key, you could just buy one. It's not going to be in logic, so there will still be a gate key somewhere in the checks. But just something to think about. What kind of run do you want to have? Do you want key items in shops? Do you want ultimate gear in shops? For me, I like that. I like shops to have an impact. I like to think about what am I spending money on? Should I hold on to this hoping for something better? Should I just buy a bunch of consumables and kind of hope that the chest delivers something? Up to you. You can kind of make the economy what you want it to be. Um, so capacity randomization, vanilla. You've got like, say at the fair, there's those two shops. They only sell two items. You got Melchior, a little bit bigger selection. So those shops will have the same amount of items for sale every time. What those items are, subject to change. If you shuffle it, um, there will still be like the same amount of shops that sell 2 things, 5 things, 10 things, whatever. It'll just, be a different shop every time. So maybe the fair will have like 20 items for sale. But you go to like, I don't know, the Medina shop, maybe that one has 2, that kind of thing. Random is pretty much what it says. I mean, you'll have some, some shops will have like 3 or 4. Some shops will have 10, 15. Just completely random. Within like a reasonable range, though. So, not buyable items. Um, Probably self-explanatory. So you don't want Shiva Edge to be something you can find in a shop. Just put it on there. By default, it's mostly like key items, uh, really good gear, whatever. Um, I don't like the concept of items not being buyable. So I mean, I'll take a lot of this stuff off. You know, want my Aussie pants, want my rainbows, amulets. Sometimes the seed just doesn't give you what you want, and what fun is that? I mean, yeah, maybe I want to spend 65,000 on a haste helm. Haste helm. Um, Maybe I want to buy the Jets of Time so I can sequence break, whatever. It's kind of how you want to play it. If you want gear to be found from playing the game, doing chess, whatever. Your choice. Not sellable items. Kind of the same concept. Obviously you don't want to be able to sell key items. That's kind of the big one. Pedals, too, all this stuff, not actually items. So the main thing I do with this, aside from the key items, um, power tabs, magic tabs, speed tabs, mega elixirs. You find quite a bit of those throughout the run, and because they are buyable in shops, they're pretty expensive typically. Conversely, that means if you sell them, like say you find like 5 megas in a run, but you only actually plan to use like two, you can sell those, get like 100,000 gold, whatever. Exaggerating a little, but turn that in for really good gear or whatever. Sell like 5 power tabs, get 3 haste helms, kind of thing. So if you have those sellable, the economy less oppressive. Um, you'll find a lot more stuff that you can buy. Um, just make things a little bit easier. I personally, I like having those 4 items not be sellable, just so I have to make like a more meaningful choice. Um, but again, I mean, however you want to play it, it's all valid. We're not going to judge you. I do play with like sellable tabs sometimes, just depending on the mode. Um, just get creative with it. All right, so item based prices, vanilla, obviously, the items are going to be what they cost in the vanilla game. Balanced. So this is my personal opinion. I kind of suggested these prices. It's mostly catered towards like the late game gear. The thing with this is, like in the vanilla game, certain items that were not obtainable in shops, like really high end stuff, your prism helms, haste helms, ultimate weapons, accessories, and whatnot. Because they were not sellable in shops, their cost was kind of arbitrary, and it was usually like 10,000 gold or something. So I just have it set to where that gear a little bit more expensive. You get like a status immunity. It's a high value item. It might be like 40,000, 50,000, 65,000. Ultimate weapons, they'll be probably towards that max price. Um, just so you don't, walk into a shop after getting 50,000 gold in a chest, buy 3 haste helms and 2 nova armors, and just kind of breeze through the game from there. Um, if you're just starting out learning the randomizer, or just, just having fun with it, having the power fantasy, you could set it to vanilla. That's fine too. Max. So what this does, every single item, from tonics to prism specs, heals, power meals, it all costs 65,000. Why would you do that? Well, it's fun. So what you can do with that, I'm sure if you played other randomizers, they might have a setting like this, but you can sell any item for half of 65,000. So you can trade 2 tonics to get enough gold to buy like a rainbow or something. So I mean, gear probably come pretty easily in a mode like that. However, on the inverse there, you've also obviously got some things you need like revives, shelters, tonics, ethers, what have you, heals. Things that you consume a lot of. Every single one of those will also be worth 65,000 gold. So you've kind of got a problem here where you go through a dungeon, say you'll get 12 chests, 12 items. You fight the boss, you blow through 8 mid tonics, 2 revives. Well, the money you get from those chests, it's not going to offset that consumable usage. So you've got to kind of think about, how can I most efficiently use this money? How can I conserve consumables so I can, in turn avoid getting stuck, getting frustrated. Have more money for stuff I actually want, gear. If you see tabs for sale, you could buy like 20 speed tabs for all the same price as any other item. You can get wacky with it, but you gotta really think about, how you're using your items, what you're spending money on. Just kind of like an interesting alternative way to play. Um, Often challenging, but often rewarding too. All right, so item price randomization, vanilla. So no randomization there. Random, they'll just give items a random price. Um, Usually we use this one, random multiplier. So like it'll take, whatever your prices are set to. You can set like a minimum, like say zero point 0.5, a max of zero point 0.2. So any item will fall within that range. So say, making up a number here, haste helms for sale for 40,000 as their base price. So anytime you roll a seed, the cost of the haste helm will be between 20,000 and 65,000, the max price. Technically 80,000, it just can't go above 65. You gotta say ethers for sale for 1,000. They'll roll anywhere from 500 to 200. So you can make items like super cheap, but that also means the sell price goes down. So, it's something like this, like a super low multiplier. Gold from combat, gold from chests becomes more important. Super high prices, selling items becomes a little more lucrative. The flat gold you get from the world, a little less impactful. Typically we just have a little bit of variance, like a little range like that, just so you can't always buy the same exact stuff for the same price. You got to think about it like maybe it's more worth it to buy mid ethers as opposed to ethers because they rolled, ethers high, mid ethers low, something like that. Certain gear might be less attractive if it's more expensive, that kind of thing. All right, so objectives. So we've got basically 4 rewards from this at this point in time. The first one, Algeti portal objectives. So if you go to the entrance to Mount Woe, you'll see a gate. It'll be sealed. What that does, it takes you to the last village, like the post Ocean Palace overworld, where you got like the North Cape, the Black Omen, the last village, the Commons, the Blackbird, whatever. So you've got 8 objectives. Let's say you set this to 2. If you get 2 of those, that portal will become unsealed. So if you have access to Mount Woe, you go in there, go through that portal. You can do the North Cape, fight a boss, possibly recruit a level 37 character. Pretty attractive if you're pretty early in the run. You're like level 20, just get early access. You can go to Commons, unlock the desert by talking to the plant lady, and then talk to the elder, get captured by Dalton, go through the Blackbird dungeon. At the end of it, you'll get flight, so that kind of opens up the seed, puts you in the end game. It opens up more objectives, more checks, more recruits, so you can really like fill out the rest of your needs for the run. Once you have that flight, save a lot of time like traversing. Pretty attractive. We typically set this to 2 or 3, just depending on the run, depending on what kind of objectives we do. Omen objectives. So once you have flight, you can pretty much get to the Omen, no matter what your objectives are. However, after the last boss, right before the Zeal Gauntlet. There'll be a door. You can't go through it if you don't have these objectives. So you set it to like one. You do one objective, you get flight. You go to Omen. You can go all the way through it, fight Zeal, fight Lavos, and just kind of win the game from there. So it's kind of like kind of one of our fail safes. Like if the objectives are super inaccessible, or you just like gambling, like say Omen takes an extra 30 minutes. There's like 5-6 bosses in there or whatever. Um, you want to check the news shop. You want those chests. You want those levels. Maybe that's worth it to you. Um, it could be that objectives are the better route. Like maybe you just have to do Sun Palace Factory, fight Lavos, just win the game from there. Kind of a choice you've got to make. You kind of got to read the seed, listen to what it's telling you. We often, like, even if like Omen is free, essentially, we still do the objectives. Omen can be a frustrating experience. You could get a bad boss there. You could get multiple bad bosses there. But it's there for if you want to try it. It's not like inherently hard or anything. The enemies there, they are a little bit annoying, but they also have like disproportionately good charms, good experience, good tech points. Well, you just gotta determine, like in a race setting, is this worth it, or do I think I can complete the run, 40 minutes from now or less, without having to do it. So bucket objectives, um, kind of self-explanatory. Say you set it to 4. Once you've got 4 objectives, if you have end of time access, you can take the gate from the bucket, fight Lavos, win the game. End of time access, either complete the factory, go to Proto-Dome, go through that gate, or get gate key plus 4 characters, go through a gate. It'll give you access. All right, time gauge objectives. Not a not a super it doesn't really explain what it is through the name. So that's the 1999 time gauge. So if you got the flying epoch, you've got 5 objectives or whatever, 6, 7. You can go through the epoch, go to 1999, crash through the Lavos shell, skip the first fight, go straight to the second form, kill the last form, win the game. So it saves you a fight compared to the bucket. If like you don't have end of time access, or maybe you've got like one more free objective, you want a little bit more levels, you think it'll be worth it to go through the extra trouble, go ahead and do that. Kind of an easy choice most of the time. Like typically you'll know, I've got the objective, I'm strong enough, I'll just do it. Or, I don't have end of time access, or getting end of time access would take as much time as just getting another objective. So maybe I'll just do the objective. However you want to do it. So every single way to win the game goes through Lavos in some way or another. Whether you do, the Omen, all that, the bucket, faster, time gauge even faster. Potentially the fastest, assuming you've got like a crazy amount of power. Obviously, Ocean Palace, you can get into that as soon as you can open a sealed door, as soon as you got the ruby knife. That's just more of a question, like, do I have the power? Do I have the confidence, the status protect, the AoE healing ability, or the cheese? Cheese is often the answer to actually do it. Um, if you do, you can achieve a pretty good time. If not, I mean, if he kills you, no big deal. You just progress on to last village. So the objective lists, we usually just keep it on any quest. There's no like drop down here. I assume that'll be coming soon. If you go on the Discord, go to the guides channel, there will be a list of like all the objective categories in here, or the individual objectives that you can put in. All right, I think we've spent enough time on objectives. So entrance options, this button here, it's scary button. Shuffle entrances. What this does, any location on the overworld, obviously, like you go to the fair, you'll be at the fair, whatever. You turn this on, it's not going to be the fair anymore, probably. So we have a couple different options, couple different like flavors of entrance rando. By default, what it'll do, so preserve spots, essentially what this is, you select like a pool of certain locations, and they'll kind of shuffle amongst themselves. So you've got, like, by default, pretty much all the important locations, key item locations, key progression points, Cathedral, the Castle, the Fair, Aussie Fort, Giant's Claw, Zeal Palace, Blackbird, all that stuff. So what this means is, like, you go to one of these locations, say the Fair, it'll be shuffled to any one of these other locations. So again, this is default. You can kind of get creative with this. You take all this away. Basically, what it means is anything can be anywhere. There's no logic to it aside from just the seed being completable, probably. So kind of like a special pool of places, so anything not in that list, that's like the secondary pool. You've got your key item locations or shops or whatever you want to make it. Then everything else will be shuffled among everything else. So you'll get, you'll walk into Chronos' house and it's actually like Xenon Bridge or something. It gets a little wacky. We played this a couple different ways. My personal preference, no epoch. So there's no free access to certain overworld locations. You start at your house, but maybe your house is, on the floating continent of Zeal. You don't know. It could be in prehistory. That could be in the future. Then you kind of go on a journey from there. You might find, say, Guardia Forest. Well, that's a location that has 2 exits. So you go on one side, maybe, from the future. You go out the other side, you might be in prehistory somewhere. So it gets a little convoluted. Any like, logical access to a check might go out the window. Like you typically need flight, for example, for say Tyranno Lair. It might just be right next door to your house. So it changes things up. A lot more unpredictable. Usually takes like an hour longer than a regular seed, if I'm being honest. Not always. Sometimes it'll be kind to you. But, you're looking for like a challenge to try to speed run it, or you're just playing casually. You can have a lot of fun with it. One thing I will say about it, because the logic of accessing certain locations is a bit mixed up, um, because you don't know where anything is. There's a good chance that like your starter character might be your only character for an hour or more. So be mindful of that. You might want to be a little bit more lenient on like the experience gains, the enemy scaling, things like that. You might want to turn split XP on, so your solo character, stays pretty well leveled. Of course, you can do it different too. You could start with the epoch. You could start with the sunken desert. You can start with any number of things. End of time access with the gates. So if you do that, end of time becomes a bit of a hub. You go through one gate. You can go through the other gates too. Um, and of course, any change you make like that, the logic will account for it. So if you start with end of time and all the gates unlocked for end of time, uh, the logic will know that. The logic will place items with that in mind. So, I mean, you can just have fun with it, go crazy. Um, Most of the time, the seeds are completable. Every once in a while, there'll be like a minor problem with the logic. It's unfortunate, but we just report it, gets fixed. Not a problem anymore. We haven't had one of those for a while, so hopefully it's okay. Then rest vanilla. Um, that's if say you shuffle all like the dungeon entrances, you can just click this on, and then only the dungeons will be randomized. So it's kind of like I guess a beginner friendly kind of entrance rando. Um, you don't have to worry about like the map so much. You don't have to worry about where your shops are, that kind of thing. And then vanilla spots, um, self-explanatory. Maybe you want Chrono's house to always be in the same spot. Maybe you always want like your recruits to be accessible. So maybe you'll make the fair vanilla. Maybe you'll make the castles vanilla, something like that. We don't use that very much, but it's there if you want it. So recruit options. Um, these pretty self-explanatory. Start our minimum level. So like if you don't necessarily like starting out the game doing 15 damage, with no text, whatever, you could start your character level 5, maybe throw in like some starter weapons or something. Maybe put their tech level to 1 or 2. Um, I want to say you set it to 3, every single character will have 1 damaging tech of some kind at minimum, unless you do like something weird like random tech order. Um, Typically we do 1-1. If we want like a jump start, maybe do like 3-1, 3-2. Just however you want to play it. Whether you want to do like some auto attacks at first to really get online, up to you. So everything else, same concept, except just where the character's recruited. So like say fair, for example, it's gated behind an item. Maybe you want to reward the player for finding the item, make them like 15 with 3 techs, whatever. Cathedral by default level 5. Castle level 5. The trial character, that's when you go to the castle, go to the prison, get broken out. They'll join your party at level 7 with 1 tech. Proto Dome, if you gain access to that early, you can go there. Level 10, 2 techs. So North Cape, one of the more significant recruits. Takes some setup to get there. Obviously, you got to unlock Zeal, do whatever number of objectives, or Ocean Palace to get there. Fairly gated, but if you get there at level 15, you recruit a level 37 character. You're pretty happy about that. They're going to carry you for a while. They'll have 3 techs, baseline, burrow, 18, 2 techs. You find a Masamune at fair, you go there, get the character, you'll be happy. Same thing for Dactyl, level 20, 2 techs. You find that Dreamstone, go to Dactyl Nest. They're going to help you. Death Peak, very, very strong. It's a very heavy check. You've got to go through the future, go through the sewers, go up Death Peak. On Death Peak, there are 3 bosses. If you're doing shuffled bosses, it's 3 of the same boss. Kind of like how there's 3 lava spawns there. In the vanilla game, the second spawn, you can actually run from it. So, I mean, a little bit easier if you do that. Anyway, for all that, in addition, you have to have the C trigger and the clone go up there. You do all that, assuming it's not a dead check. There will be a character up there. They'll be level 37. They'll have all their techs. There have been seeds where we get it like, level 5. We get the clone. We go up there, find a character, and they just absolutely carry us. It's a time investment. It's a gamble. It can be a little bit difficult having to fight multiple bosses to get up there. But, potentially very rewarding. It also is a key item check, so even if there's no character, you'll still get something out of it. But yeah, I mean, you can make this whatever you want. You can make stuff stronger when you recruit it, have more techs, less techs. You can start your character level 24 with 5 techs if you want. Just again, however you want to play it. Creativity is encouraged. People have made some pretty good flag sets. So minimum recruits, basically that overrides all of these settings. So, whatever math happens when a character is recruited to set their level, they'll just lean on that as opposed to, going by these levels. Scale level to leader, something you can kind of cheese with. We've usually just got that on. So let's say, you get that Dreamstone, go up Dactyl Nest, you get a level 20 Ayla or something up there. If you put her at the front of the party and go to Cathedral, any recruit you get from there on will scale to her level. So she's level 25. They join the party at 25. Same thing for Death Peak. You get that level 37 character with 8 techs. The rest of your party's 15. You go up to Proto Dome. You recruit that character. They'll be level 37 with 8 techs if that Death Peak character's in the lead. So it's like a slingshot thing you can do. It's like I said, it's something we usually keep on just because like those kind of strategies I think are interesting. If you can actually make use of it, obviously a lot of the time you go through all these setup and there's no character there. So little risk, very high upside potentially. And it'll save you, a lot of difficulty on bosses if you do pull it off. It'll let you get to the end game quicker, more easily. Just rewarding rewarding the gamble a little. It is a randomizer. Scale tech level to leader, same thing. We just keep that on usually. Scale gear. So, have you ever been in a situation, you're kind of in the end game, fishing for like a character that you need for a certain setup. You recruit them. They've got a wood sword and a hide tunic. Well, maybe you didn't expect to get this character, so you didn't buy them any gear. You didn't see anything in a chest. Maybe you sold, one of their good pieces to, I don't know, get something for a character you actually have, whatever. Well, the idea with this, if they join the party at say level 10, maybe they've got like some more mid to low tier gear as opposed to what they start with. They might get like something you find in the future, Necron Cave or something. If they join at level 20, maybe they're kind of on par with what you'd have like at Reptite Lair, I guess Castle, something like that. If they join the party at level 30, maybe they got kind of like the low level gear that you'd have going through Ocean Palace or Mount Woe or something. It just if you recruit a strong character, they should also have appropriate gear. We usually keep it on. It's never like game breaking equipment or anything. It's just kind of like the bare minimum to have that character be like what you'd think they'd be. Like just as an example, in the vanilla game, Magus, he joins level 37. Um, his starting gear. It's not like a wood sword. Like it's a decently strong weapon. He's got decent armor. He's got a really good accessory. It's kind of in the spirit of that. Like you go to the North Cape, recruit Chrono or something. He's at the level of power that he should be, basically. All right, so treasure options, loot pool, vanilla. We usually keep it vanilla. What this is, it's just a list of every single item that you can get from a chest or a tab or an NPC in the game. So you'll have, a good amount of consumables, uh, megas, whatever. There are a lot of megas in the vanilla pool, usually from like Omen, some of the late game stuff. You also have, basically one of every piece of gear. So there'll be a rainbow, a crisis arm, Terra arm, Valkyrie, Wonder Shot, Doomsickle, all that stuff. Prism helm, haste helm, vigil hat, Nova armor, moon armor. Uh, Everything in the game will be somewhere. There's no rules to where it's placed. There's no logic by default. So it has happened that like we start with the Chrono, we go downstairs, talk to his mom. She's like, "Oh, here's your allowance," and it's a rainbow. You're like, "Oh, thanks, mom." Um, there's no tiering to the chests. Um, any chest is potentially worth as much as any other chest. Just a question of, at what point do you have enough? At what point do you not need to loot anymore? Um, do I go through Denador early because it has more chests, so I increase my chances of finding something I really want? It's a lot of fun. It's, I think, one of like the pillars of this randomizer. Um, Obviously, direct comparison to Jets of Time. No shade, just different Jets. It does do the tiered chests. It's a random setup, so you might find like 5 of one weapon, 0 of another. Just a different vibe. Because typically we go through the game scaled. There's really no such thing as like a harder dungeon or a late game dungeon. If you go to a dungeon later, it'll just be harder. So it wouldn't really make sense to have, um, better gear at say Mount Woe because it's not a harder dungeon. Um, and also, we do a lot of cool stuff with the techs. We do a lot of cool stuff with the weapon effects, DS gear upgrades. So it really does benefit you to have, you know, everything obtainable. It's good to know that, you're not just gonna never find something if you try hard enough. So we can also just do random. Um, not random the same way jets would be. This is just straight up any chest can have any item and just pulls from a pool. The implication of that kind of random, um, it's kind of become like an inside joke. But you turn this on, you go to Denadoro, you find 2 haste helms and a prism specs every time. It's very much one of those power fantasy kind of runs. Um, Not necessarily challenging, although knowing that you're going to find a bunch of good stuff, you can set the game to be harder to account for that. Really get wacky with it. Tiered random loot. This is more Jets like. You'll get random gear, but it'll be more weighted towards like the low end. Like you'll find a lot more consumables, a lot more low end gear. You're gonna see a smaller amount of good stuff like megas or ultimate gear. Still random though, so you might find 0 of something, you might find 3 prism specs. It just depends how the seed rolls. Custom loot pool, that's kind of a new feature. Similar to maybe what other randomizers have done. So you could set it to like 75% vanilla, 20% random, 5% tab, for example. So what that'll do, it'll take the vanilla list, cut 25% of that off, make 20% of it just random loot. So you can find like anything in that. 5% of it will get converted to tabs. Tabs are like, I want to say like say 45% power, 45% magic, 10% speed tab, a distribution kind of like that. Random loot, vanilla loot, self-explanatory. So what this will do, it'll remove like the guarantee that every single vanilla item will be obtainable. But on the plus side, the 20% random, very good chance that this 20% of the loot pool is going to be pretty lucrative. You might end up finding like multiple prism specs, multiple haste helms, but without going 100% random where you just get showered with stuff. It's a little more balanced. Yeah, pretty exciting. It kind of shakes up like the loot pool a little bit. I think it feels good. I usually do like 75-25. I think that feels nice. So loot assignment scheme. We got shuffle, which it just takes all of the chests, uh, puts them somewhere else. No logic to it, just moves them. Logic depth. So kind of an experimental flag. It goes with the logic depth scaling. Similar concept. So in a randomizer, there's a concept of spheres. So sphere 0, that's where you start, and then as you as you progress, like you'll get something that unlocks something else, get you a little bit deeper into the game. The deeper you get, the the more likely there will be like a better piece of gear. So again, kind of like jets, where you get gosh, say Mount Woe, that's kind of a gated check. Um, here it'd be the same thing. Mount Woe is gated behind a good number of things. Getting both the pendant and the pendant charge, or Fog in the Masamune in Magus Castle, or Ayla, Dreamstone, Tyranno Lair. That's going to be something that it takes a few steps to get to. So what this will do, it'll put like better loot in those areas. It'll take the chests that rolled really good. It'll put them there. Not 100% of them, but enough to be significant. Um, you get to Black Omen. That's even deeper in the logic. It's probably going to have even better stuff. All right, so good loot. This portion of it, you basically define what you consider to be good item. I think it's a pretty universally accepted thing that this stuff is pretty good. Megas, Hyper Ether Elixir, Speed Tab, Rainbow, ultimate gear, the best consumables, best accessories, whatever. But I mean, you can make that whatever you want. There's going to be some more implications to this as we scroll down this page. So good loot spots. Again, at this point, we're just defining like places that should contain good loot. I think you're kind of seeing where this is going. So by default, that's kind of the cheeky stuff, more out of the way loot places. Gas bar, a lot of the key item spots, if they don't have a key item, Xenon Bridge stuff, Ozzy's Fort, Prison Tower, Melchior, after the King's Trial, Factory, Wondershot, stuff that's out of the way, stuff that takes, a little extra effort. Maybe it's gated, like Hecarim Cave, that sealed chest. You can't necessarily do it when you do the dungeon. You may have to come back for it. But again, you can define whatever you want for this. Like maybe you want like the kind of seed where the game gives you some good stuff right from the start. Like the forest or the cathedral or something. Throw a few good spots in there. Throw some good gear in it. Just kind of get you started with something nice. Whatever. So you take these two lists. What they do essentially, it'll place the good loot into the good loot spots. This good loot rate, that's like what percentage of the good loot spots have good loot. So you can set it to 100. You can put like all the ultimate gear where the ultimate gear was in the vanilla game, for example. It'll still be shuffled, of course. Or you could set it to like 50%. So any one of these spots will have a 50-50 chance of being like a really good item. Then the rest of the good items, they'll be randomly distributed throughout the rest of the game. Post assign shuffle rate. That's just after the loot's already assigned. It'll shuffle it. Trading post base cost. So at the hut, in 65 million, where you trade like feathers and fangs and stuff for gear. There's three distinct tiers of it. Initially it'll be six, fairly mid to low end items. In the randomizer, it picks like 13 pieces of gear at random, and the six worst ones, it'll be in the first tier. Then like the six, better ones, it'll be after you unlock Zeal, I believe. You can make them cost a little bit more, like 6 materials. And then the special one, it's kind of, I think, where the ruby armor was. You trade, every single material for it. I set it to 9 typically, so you trade 9 of everything for that item. Um, Not much more to it than that. Uh, okay, so enemy options. Um, these two basically quality of life. Side scope all lets you like see the HP of bosses in addition to normal enemies. Force sight scope, that's essentially like as if you're wearing the sight scope at all times. You don't actually need to use it. We usually keep these on. It's a scaling enemy randomizer, so you get weird HP values. Um, I don't think there's a person in the world that can memorize every single enemy's HP at every single level. That's a lot of numbers. You can get like a a good vibe for it, but ultimately, we like to see HP. Um, if you're not trying to plan like your damage output, whatever, you can just turn this off and trust that the enemies will have a reasonable amount of HP. We just like the quality of life. We usually keep it on. Shuffle enemies, that's like another one of the pillars of the randomizer. Um, if you're just learning, figuring out the logic, how the game plays, whatever, you might turn it off, but we keep it on. So shuffle enemies, self-explanatory, a lot like boss randomizer. Every enemy in the game, with a couple exceptions, their location will be shuffled. So like you go to Cathedral, normally fight 4 Naga-ets at the entrance. Maybe this time it'll be some bluebirds. Maybe it'll be like those annoying plant enemies that put you to sleep. Um, the way it shuffles, it's based on the sprite size of the enemy. So a small enemy will always be shuffled into a spot that contain another small enemy. It's like a technical thing. Different sprite sizes have different considerations as far as their animations, memory usage, things like that. I don't actually know what I'm talking about, but I trust the experts on this. So that does kind of work out because often the larger enemies are also significantly more challenging. Think of fossil apes, mutants, um, gigasaurs, especially. Those are scary. So you don't want to necessarily fight 4 of those in the cathedral at the start to get your second character. Understandably so. So this also works with transforming enemies. That enemy type, kind of a special classification. They get shuffled amongst themselves, also based on size. So there's certain quirks to that. For example, the goblins on Denadoro, they actually have 2 different sprite sizes depending on what phase they're in. Same thing for the Bantam Imps on Mount Woe. So the thing with that is like those enemies are both like the exact same sprite sizes as the other. So you go to Denador Mount Woe, those enemy types are just going to be one of those two. But other than that, it's a lot less predictable. Special exception, thankfully, we're all pretty happy about this. You're probably not going to find Departed. That's the secret golden skeleton enemy in Northern Ruins that you get when you fuse a slime with a skeleton. They are very strong, very high resistances. They basically two-shot any character. They also counter. So fighting more than one of those, it might as well be like a super boss. It's very scary. I've had seeds where at the entrance to the Black Omen, there's those 8 laser guards. Well, or 6, sorry. It was actually 6 golden skeletons, and I just could not even kill one of them. It was bad. But yeah, thankfully, you're probably never going to see those because they require 2 specific enemies. They require the fuse to happen, and even if that happens, it's only a single one of them. Another exception, Black Omen enemies. They're very large. They're a special class. They're giant. Think of like goons. Think of Cybots, Tubsters. They're all giant enemies. No other enemies are as big as they are. So you're not gonna. I guess you'll see Tubsters. They're not that size. But goons, Cybots, they're Martello, I think. Or Syncrite, whatever the big one is. I think Syncrite. Scary enemies, very very strong. They're gonna stay in the Omen because nothing outside of the Omen is that big. So that's nice. That also means like if you got vanilla charms, for example, the goons, they give you Nova armors. You're basically guaranteed access to that if you go to the Omen. Of course, you need charm. Anyway, yeah. Rambling a little bit. Shuffle enemies. It's a lot of fun. Once you're comfortable, I would definitely recommend turning it on. So post rando options, we're kind of coming up on the end here. So nothing super complex here. Default fast movement on or off. Do you hold the B button to move, or do you just run by default, then walk by holding the button? Default fast overworld movement, same thing, but on the overworld map. You may not know this, but if you hold the run button on the map, you will move faster on the map. You can set this to be default fast or default slow. I like holding the B button, so I just keep everything off, but some people think I'm weird for that. Same thing, epoch movement. If you hold the button, it'll go faster. Or you can just, make it faster by default. Battle speed, message speed, that's just in-game options. You can preset. One is the fastest. Typically, people do, 2, 3 battle speed, depending on their comfort level with getting into the menu. Battle memory cursor, that's, if you use a tech like Lightning 2, for example, it'll keep that highlighted the next time that character's turn comes up, so you can just hit A, get right back into the tech menu, do Lightning 2 again. Menu memory cursor, same concept, but with the in-game menu. Window background, another vanilla setting, obviously. It doesn't show a preview here, but if you know like which menu background you want, I go with like 7, I think, because it's just like a black box. So palettes, not not something you can kind of intuit from the actual site itself. If you go on Discord, there is a guide. In the guides channel, there's also like a palette sharing channel. Basically, what we can do, there's a tool that I made. Should be in the guides channel somewhere. It's for sure in the palette channel. It's an HTML file. You know, if you're concerned about, you know, unwanted programs, you know, doing unwanted things, you know, just look at it. There's nothing malicious there. What you do, you open up that file. It'll open up straight in your browser. I'll see if I can pull it up real quick, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about here. Just a sec. Okay, here we go. So, okay, yeah, it looks good. Oh, all right. So in this program, I've got it like in a zip file, and it contains like these template files for each character. It's got, you know, their sprites with a couple different poses showing different angles of the character. They're just BMP files, so you know you can do with them what you want. So I've got it set up here. You know, the important colors of their palette are in the file. There's a couple other colors, like some whites, some transparency, some outlines. I just go ahead and take those out. They're not in the files. It's only like the relevant stuff is here. See if this shows up. Yeah, it does. Okay. So what we can do, you know, for each color in their palette, there's the ability to change it. It'll automatically apply to the preview image. So we can make Luca's, you know, details here, different colors. Luca's kind of a hard sprite just because like all the colors are so jumbled up. But like, say, I don't know, pull up Chrono. He's kind of an easy one to edit. Change his skin color. Whatever. Change like the highlights of his hair. Make it, let's say, green. We can kind of keep like the same shadow level if we just like change the hue down here. A little bit easier that way. So you see like there's like a red outline here. You can scroll down to find this red color, change that to green too. So that looks pretty good. So he's got like the blue tunic. Maybe we want to make it purple, for example. Just change this. So looking pretty good. That took all of like, you know, 1 minute while I was also explaining things. Maybe give him some black pants. Why not? You know, we can do that with any of the characters. Robo, classic thing, classic skin that I did. Everybody pretty much stole it immediately. You know, give him like a desaturated kind of gray, dark gray, metalish color. Then you can go ahead, go up here, change his eyes, turn them red. A little more saturation. So now he's a Terminator. So it's just that easy. Like I said, certain characters, their sprites are maybe a little bit less intuitive, but Um, just play around with it, see if you can find something that looks good. So what we do from here, we copy this palette string, then we'll come over to the generator. So robo palette, we'll just paste that. And then when we generate the seed, our robo will look a little sinister. So you can save these strings. You can save, you know, the output from the file when you generate it, and you can just apply that to every seed going forward if you want. Also, if you're on the Discord, you can use the generator bot. You can save like your own personal settings file. So basically, all of these things. Um, oh, sorry, I need to change the window back. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So I took that robo string, I pasted it in here, and now that palette's going to apply to robo. So yeah, you can do that for all of the main cast. Some of us, we like to get a little creative with it. Some look better than others. It's a lot of fun though. Like I said, very easy. Just click a few things. You'll get a reskin character. Not a lot of learning curve aside from just basic color theory. What looks good, what doesn't. But maybe you like things that don't look good. You just want to make every character sepia tone or inverted colors or something else. Have fun with it. That's whatever you want to do. So ending when you beat the game, you know, pretty straightforward. Beyond time, the normal ending. The dream project, developer ending. What the prophet seeks. People like that one. Slideshow, the one where Chrono talks. You can just have it be whatever you want. You can even set it to random, so every time you beat the game, you don't know what the ending is going to be. Just this is all personal settings. Remove flashes if you're streaming, especially if you have like a large audience. You're doing like an event or something. Definitely turn that on. Photosensitive viewers, they'll thank you for it. There are some pretty aggressive flashes in this game, so if, like I said, if you got a lot of people watching, it's good to be considerate. The only people watching me are bots, so I keep it on, but I should probably just keep it off. Honestly, it kind of bugs me a little that I keep forgetting to do that. So gear rando, there is a gear rando in Jets of Time. This is a little bit different, a lot a bit different. So first setting here, DS item pool, or D's item pool. It's the way it's written here, but it's DS. What that means, any ports of the game from the DS onward, they had some additional content. Some better than others. But we like some of the gear that was in there. So we ported it. Not all of it, just the stuff that wasn't stupid. So we got Dreamseeker, basically a better version of the Rainbow. Venus Bow, it does 777 damage per attack, no matter what. And also you can shuffle effects from one weapon to another. So if you get a Venus item in the pool, maybe it gets shuffled onto like the Rainbow or the Dreamseeker. Essentially, what that does for Chrono, if he crits, it'll still be 777. If he doesn't crit, it'll do 777. If he does a dual tech, his part of the dual tech will do 777. But the main thing, with Chrono especially, he has Confuse. Well, what does Confuse do? It hits an enemy 4 times. So what's the implication there? Well, 777 damage 4 times. That's a lot. That's like 3,000 damage or more. With every single confuse. So very, very strong effect depending on the character, especially early game. It may fall off later, but on confuse, does it really fall off? No, not really. You don't need any special, you know, power tabs. You don't need any prism specs. They're not going to do anything. It will always do 777. This includes enemies with resistances. Um, you know, the barriers on Lavos, Hecarim, does not matter. It will do 777 damage, I promise. Very interesting item. Moving on, Turbo Shot. It's just a wonder shot, but without random damage, and it's got +3 speed on it. Wonder shot, cool item, cool effect, but maybe you just want to go fast. Spell Slinger. So if you're familiar with the Crisis Arm, um, the last digit of your HP, 0 through 9, your damage will be multiplied by that. Crisis MP, same concept. Takes the last digit of your MP, multiplies your attack damage by that. So, depending on the character, depending on what your HP values are, what your techs cost, you can get a little creative with it. Say you've got like 81 max MP, you've got like Slash, it costs 2 MP. Use that once, you have 79 MP. And from there, you can auto attack for your 9 times damage. Never run out of MP. Just keep it on that number. Hit pretty hard. Or maybe you've got like a spin cut that costs 10. You'll have 79. You'll use it, do 9 times damage. Have 69, 9 times damage again. Or say you've got a 5 MP spin cut. It'll bring you down to 74. Maybe you don't like the amount of damage 74 does, so you use like a 5 cost lightning instead. Bring it back down to 69, kind of alternate that way. Just different strategies you can apply just depending on what you roll, what your character is, what they're good at. Dragon Arm, essentially it's just Crisis Arm without Crisis. It's stronger than the Terror Arm. No additional effect. Apocalypse Arm, appropriate name. So what it does, it has no base attack power. It has a 10% crit chance, but when it does crit, you're gonna have a great time because it's gonna do 9,999 damage. A good thing to have, like if you have like a frenzy band, every time you get hit, there's a 10% chance you hit back for 10,000 damage. Or like you haste a character, put a berserker on them. Just keep fishing for that max damage attack. Just like Venus Bow goes through defenses. Same idea as like the Bronze Fist from the vanilla game. Very strong, but obviously, low attack damage, low crit chance, bit of a gamble. You can boost that crit chance. We'll talk about that in a minute. Dino Blade, just a good frog sword, got bonus power on it. Judgment Scythe, Dream Reaper. One of these I think does like a 60% chance to confuse the enemy. Status is good, makes the enemy useless, lowers their defenses, lowers their attack damage. Dream Reaper, just like Shiva Edge, just 4 times crit damage. 4 times crit, it's a nice thing to have in the pool. You'll have a good chance of like getting a pretty strong item. Say you get like a rainbow 70% crit chance. Well, It's stronger than the Shiva Edge in damage terms, and the crit chance is 10 times higher. You get a 70% crit chance on a rainbow. 70% chance to do 4 times attack damage. That's pretty good. Definitely, you find it early, or you have like a berserker or haste helm, throw it on that character. They're gonna, slap a boss for 3,000 damage every second or two. Pretty efficient. All right, so Reptite Dress. That's a female only item. Gives plus 10 magic. So Luca, Ayla, Marl. Tailspin. Very strong magic attack, very strong scaling, especially if it rolls high. Obviously, for the girls that are casters, self-explanatory. Ayla Kiss, also very good. Dragon Armor, plus 10 power for the men. Regal Plate, just a very strong, basically prism dress equivalent for the guys. A Regal Gown, it's like a prism dress but better. Shadow Plume Robe, it's so good that I removed it from the pool. Gives Magus like 20 magic defense plus barrier plus shield. Basically makes him invincible. A little too strong for my taste. Elemental Aegis, it's for Luca only. Replaces the suit, plus 3 speed one. What it does, it just nullifies any elemental damage. So fire, water, lightning, shadow, just does 0 damage. No absorption, nothing like that. Doesn't obviously nullify non-elemental damage, physical damage. So situational, but very good. Like say on Son of Sun, she's not going to take any damage. Hecarim, aside from the physical attack, no damage. Any caster, pretty good stuff. It's possibly broken like in some situations, but a lot of those bosses are cheesable by like elemental males anyway. So it's good. It's hype, but sometimes like the plus 3 speed would be better. Just situational. Saurian Leathers, plus 3 power and speed. Obviously, pretty good item. You don't normally find plus speed in like an armor slot aside from Luca. Dragon Head, just plus power in the helmet slot. Reptite Tiara, plus magic in the helmet slot. Master's Crown, I believe that's just for the men. Gives plus 25% damage, just like Sunshades. The only thing with it is it also provides immunity to all status. And also the 25% damage stacks with your accessories. So, you get Prism Specs, get a Master Crown. It's going to be more damage than if you just had one or the other. Angel's Tiara, status immunity, helmet, and it also has haste. So these two, very good. Valor Crest, plus 20% crit chance. So, if you got the 4 times crit, you've got, the quad 9 crit. Or you just like auto attacking. Say you've got like a really good weapon, but no good techs. You throw that on there, you crit more. You're pretty happy. So Valor Crest, it is Ayla exclusive, unfortunately. I should have led with that. Sorry. It also has a 50% counterattack chance. So I mean, it's pretty good. You throw that on there, she just does extra damage, crits more. Dragon's Tier though, that's 20% crit that anybody can use. So, get your 4 times crit rainbow, throw that on there. Suddenly you have a 90% crit chance. You get your apocalypse arm, whatever. 10% quad 9s. Now it's 30% quad 9s. So, pretty useful item. Um, not something you wear every time, but it's enough. It has its uses. So all this DS item stuff, every single one of these replaces like a similar equivalent item from the vanilla game. So like Dream Seeker replaces Rainbow, Venus Bow is a replacement for the Valkyrie, Turbo Shot Spellslinger. That's all Wonder Shot replacements. Um, so you can't really like stack up a bunch of crazy stuff. Um, you get say I don't know a Regal armor or Regal plate, Regal gown. Maybe that's actually a replacement for Nova armor. So like yeah, you get the high defenses, but you don't get the status immunity, that kind of thing. So every seed, if you have this on, you're gonna get a different pool of potential items, effects. It's up to you to decide. How do I leverage this to beat Lavos? If you don't find status protect in the chest slot, you have to devote accessory to it, or a helmet, or um, just kind of base tank it, use heals, or wait for the boss to knock the confuse off you or whatever. Um, anyway, DS replacement chance. That's the chance that any one of those items upgrades to the DS counterpart. So you set it to 35. There's a 35% chance you'll find a Dream Seeker instead of a Rainbow. For weapons that turn into more than one thing, like a Turbo Shot Spellslinger off of Wonder Shot, it is a 35% chance that it upgrades. Then it'll be a 50-50 chance between those two. So with like a base chance of 35%, there's a 17.5% chance in any given seed that you'll get the Crisis MP effect somewhere. Um, a 35% chance you get the broken haste protect all item, that kind of thing. So DS items generally very strong, very impactful. If you set it to a high number, it's going to be a high power seed. You set it to like 35, maybe you only find like 3-4 of them. You kind of gotta pick and choose, strategize around that. Right, so weapon rando pool. This is kind of like the extra counterpart to this. So everything you select here, its effect will be shuffled with everything else in here. So say, for example, you got like, where is it? I'll find it. It's probably all going to be at the bottom here. So like Doom Sickle gives you the Doom effect. Party member dies, your attack damage goes up. Another one dies, it goes up again. Pretty strong effect. Maybe get Swallow here, +3 speed. Shiva Edge, 4 times crit. Slasher, +2 speed. Siren, I think, does a stop or something. Wonder Shot, random damage. Also upgrades to Turbo Shot, +3 speed. Spell Slinger, Crisis MP. So whatever that upgrades to, that's going to be what's in the pool. So let's say you roll out with this stuff. You pick up a Wonder Shot. It's got the Doom effect. Pick up a Doom Sickle. It's got 4 times crit. You pick up a Siren. It's got +3 speed. Just whatever's in here, it's going to shuffle its effect with everything else in here. So you can get creative. You can force like 100% DS chance, but only put like the Spell Slinger in the pool. The Dream Reaper, say. So there will be a 100% chance that these two items will be in the pool. And then they're also down here. So, you pick up any one of these. One of them's going to have, one of them's going to have a 4 times crit. One of them's going to have the Crisis MP effect. What I like to do, I pick like 2 items from each character, like say the rainbow, the Shiva edge. Things that are usually high-end items have good effects. Just so like there's an equal chance that each character gets a given effect. Like you could, for example, put like 5 chrono weapons on here and 2 for everybody else. But what that means is that every single seed chrono is just going to have more effects than everybody else that he can choose from. But I mean, if you're wanting to have like chrono be really good, you could do that. I try to be fair. I try not to weight it too much to one character. Character options. You may have seen some of this if you've seen anybody playing this. Physical Marl. So what this does, every time she levels up, she's gonna gain a little bit of hit, which increases her chance to hit in addition to her damage. Additionally, instead of provoke, her status effect, she's gonna gain arrow hail, and what that does, she does a cute little animation, shoots some arrows into the sky, they rain down on the enemy. It does physical damage, scales with their weapon. So there's a little more benefit, a little more utility to having like a good weapon effect on her. So say she's just starting the game out, she gets like a Doom Valkyrie or something. It's going to do 3 times damage. It's a high damage weapon. She gets arrow hail. Well, that arrow hail, just like any other physical tech, inherits that weapon damage and then gets multiplied by the Doom multiplier. So it it just gives her more things she can do, more things you can lean into. Generally we keep this on provoke. While it is useful with the addition of the DS items, we do have a lot of just random status in the game, a lot of weapons with like stop, confuse, things of that nature. So it's kind of a less useful tech overall. We do like the arrow hail. Characters having a use for their weapon, never gonna say no to that. Pretty good option. Haste all, self-explanatory. Use haste, applies to your whole party. It does increase the cost from like 6 to 15. So a little bit of a drawback, but considering what you get for it, I mean, it should cost 20 or more. It's so good. You can keep it on, off, either one. I keep it off typically just because it is that strong. I tried to go for like a little bit more challenge. Physical Luca, similar to Marl, gets the hit scaling. 3 of her techs end up benefiting from weapon damage. Flame Toss, Napalm, Mega Bomb. So not like super good techs in the first place. They've got limited targeting ability, line damage, small AoE. It most of the time, if I'm being honest, physical Luca is just worse than regular Luca. Unlike Marl, who has like 3 pretty good weapons, Luca's got like 1. It's the Wonder Shot. Everything else, like the damage just pales in comparison. So unless you're finding a Wonder Shot on Luca, these techs are just not going to hit very hard compared to if you're just doing magic. Although when it does hit, you get that really good weapon at the start. You get a Napalm Flame Toss early on. It can be pretty good. It could do thousands of damage if you get like a Doom weapon or Wonder weapon. You get like a high roll on these techs. It can hit for several thousand. It's just like the scenarios in which that actually happens. inconsistent. You're not gonna get it every game. Um, so up to you. Bit of a gamble. Okay, so moving on. Um, one thing you'll notice, you can hover over all this stuff. It'll give like a little bit of a tooltip. Um, I'm going into a little more depth than that, obviously, talking about like the implications of things, what you might do with them, maybe spark some ideas. So protect all um, does what it says. Luca does protect, applies to everybody, doubles the cost. Another very strong effect. Any kind of like party buff that doesn't apply to a single character. Um, definitely makes the game easier. Might make you more inclined to actually use them. So personal preference. I usually keep it off. Re-raise. If you've ever used Green Dream, Lifeline, ever played Jets of Time, you're familiar with this. You precast it on a party member. If they die, it'll bring them back. Magus Dual Techs, very strong. Pretty obvious what this does. He's got Fire 2, Lightning 2, Ice 2. Any one of those. On a different character, you can use them for dual techs. Spire, whatever that Robo Chrono one is, I forget. Glacier, Antipode, Fire Sword 2, Ice Sword 2, Tailspin, or Fire Roll, sorry. Anything that uses those techs, he can also do now. We lovingly call this the Friend Lord setting. So if you ever hear that, that's what we're talking about. It just makes him play well with the other party members. Some implications of that. Obviously, he has a lot of damaging techs. Very good chance that any one of these rolls really well. So maybe just as an example, Ayla rolls 20 MP Tailspin. Well, that makes Fire Whirl very good. Very attractive tech. But maybe your Luca Fire 2 rolls crap, like 2. You recruit Magus. Suddenly you've got a 20 MP Fire 2. Just strictly better. He's a fast character. His magic is very high. Oops. Just if you want to play with that, play with that. Just know that it does reduce kind of the challenge in building a party. It does make him a more attractive character overall. Oftentimes, playing Jets. Maybe he's a strong character for like the first 90% of the game, but in the end game he falls off just because he has no meaningful like single target. His stuff doesn't necessarily slot in to like your end game strategy, whatever. This will fix that. So, if that's something you want, go for it. Daltonized Magus. I'm hesitant to call this a pillar of the randomizer because it's it's by no means like something we play with all the time, but it is the namesake, the Rando-Dalton Imperial. I suggested this kind of as a joke, but with like some serious thought actually put into it, and ended up being made into a thing. So what this does replaces, I want to say, Dark Bomb, Dark Mist, Dark Matter, Black Hole with Dalton-inspired techs, starting with Gale Slash, like kind of like a Chrono Slash, except it's physical. It's based on his weapon damage, its line damage. So, if you've ever gotten like a doom sickle, you're like, oh wow, this is awesome. I can do, 3 times auto attack damage on a caster. Who cares? Well, you might care now because say you get like that Gale Slash rolls like 20 MP or something. Um, your maybe your other party members are dead. You throw that thing out, it might do like 6,000 damage in a line, for example. Not a common scenario, but it can happen. There's utility to it. You can build around it. Second tech, blurp, or just call it burp, whatever. Um, it's an AOE non-elemental, so it's not going to get absorbed or nullified. Aside from just enemies with magic defense generally, doesn't do like a lot of damage. The animation's pretty fast. It's a funny tech, obviously. But what it does do, except on like Lavos and mechanical enemies, it'll poison them. Poison, of course, is a status effect, so it reduces their defenses. It reduces their attack damage. In addition to that, uh, every once in a while, like every 2 weeks or so, the poison will tick. They'll do about 7% of the enemy's max HP. So the initial damage may not be high, but if you're fighting like a long slog of a fight, um, your Tyrannos or other stuff, maybe a boss that you don't necessarily have like the right damage profile for, like you don't have like high magic damage on a Hecarim or something, so it ends up being like a long fight. You can use that at the start of the fight, apply the poison debuff, and it'll take them down time. It'll, the earlier you do it, the more damage it's going to be. Obviously, you get more ticks. It'll add up. So it may be something you only cast once at the start, then move on to other stuff. But the benefit you get from the tick damage, the reduced enemy defenses, the reduced enemy damage, highly beneficial. Not to be slept on. His next tech, Burst Ball. It's those little orange orbs that he throws at people. It's a pretty high scaling, good damage, non-elemental single target. So, kind of Tailspin-esque. If you're used to like Jets of Time, it's a single target, no element. It doesn't like pierce through all defenses, unfortunately, but if you're going up against like physical resistance or like specific elemental resistances, Magus comes to mind. This will just go through that. So it's got its uses. It's also again a pretty fast animation. So if you're going just for like maximum damage per second, um, there's some use to that. Finally, last tech, Iron Orb. Um, so if you have played the game before, I'm sure you've seen this attack. It drops a big ball from the sky. Dalton loves his balls, loves crushing people. In the vanilla game, when this is used on you, reduces your HP by 50%, current HP. Similar concept here. The amount of damage it does is based on the cost of the tech, up to 20. So at 20% or 20 MP, it will do 100% of an enemy's health. So you drop it on an enemy, kills them in one shot. If it does 50% on a 100 HP enemy, it'll do 50. You do it again, it'll do 25. The more HP the enemy has, the more percent damage, means to you. So with that in mind, bosses, they have a lot of HP. Um, anything that's immune to instant death, uh, so anything you can't use black hole on, there's an additional modifier. It'll do 25% of the damage of the iron orb. So, say you got an iron orb that does 100% of an enemy's current HP. On a boss, it'll do 25%. So, you got a 10,000 HP enemy. It does 2,500. Nothing to sneeze at. Obviously, like the lower their HP gets, the more you might want to switch over to something else that'll hit harder. But it's a good opener, really good against high HP stuff. Rust Tyranno might have 30,000 HP. Go ahead, knock 7,500 off of there. You're not going to complain about that. This is especially good for Lavos, obviously. High HP enemy, a lot of shielding mechanics, like the face in phase 2, the right bit in phase 3. Right bit's got 30,000 health. Throw the ball at them. Suddenly, it's got 25,000 health. Throw the ball again. You can get it down to like half HP before the shield goes down. You're not super worried about like dying to the rest of the bits. Pretty useful. All this stuff, it's a little unique compared to some other characters. You can find some good uses for it. I think like the number one thing we've kind of found, a Son of Sun. If you iron orb the boss, it will die most of the time. The way that boss works, if it drops below 10,000 HP, the boss dies. So early on in the game, it's only got like 10,200, let's say. So you only have to hit the flames once, it'll die. Up until, max scaling, where it takes about 10 hits to kill. It's got, like, say, 12,000 HP at the end. Well, what happens if you take, let's say, I don't know, 20% HP off of that? It's going to drop below 10,000. The boss is going to die. So it's a fun thing you can do. All right, moving on. Boss scaling options. So this asterisk, it's a little bit more of an advanced setting. I'm told it might be removed at some point, but until then, what you need to know, these are the defaults. This is essentially like the internal level of the boss. So, like Yakra, for example, in the vanilla game, he's level 6. That's not like a number that you can actually see by playing the game. It's it's internal to the game. Something with that. The levels, there's not necessarily like a correlation between the level of the boss and their challenge level, their stats. It does a pretty good rough job of it, but what you'll find with scaling is certain bosses scale better than others. They'll be more of a threat at high levels. Some bosses will be more threatening at low levels. So you can kind of play, game balancer with this. By default, Yakra's 4 instead of 6 to make him more of a challenge, make him scale a little bit better. So what it is let's just say Dalton, the mini boss. He's level 26. So his vanilla stats in the game, if you fight him at scaling level 26, he will be vanilla. Dalton plus, you fight him at level 20, he'll be as strong as he was in the vanilla game. So notable thing there. Normally in the vanilla game, you fight Dalton plus at like 35. You're fresh out of the Ocean Palace. He's not a threatening boss at 35. He's got like 4,000 health. as counters do like 100 damage. You just lost like your main party lead. So the game's a little generous, turns him into like a joke fight. However, we don't want him to be a joke. We want like bosses to feel compelling. So his levels got turned down quite a bit. Now, turning down the boss level makes them stronger because the scaling, it takes what level the boss was. And then if the scaling is say 40, the boss is level 35, it'll increase their stats in proportion to what their level is. So if you set boss to a lower level, going from 20 to 40, it'll increase their stats that much more. So basically what this means is, if you feel like a certain boss is too hard, Mega Mutant, for example, increase their level a little bit. You can make them a little bit easier, lower their stats, lower their HP. We've played with the numbers a little bit. Typically, the philosophy is we don't really mess with vanilla. However, because scaling inherently is not vanilla, we feel like maybe messing with the scaling itself is probably fine. Like it doesn't change the boss script at all. It doesn't change like their relative stats. It just changes like how they interact, with the systems of the randomizer. So like Gato, if you want to be a little scarier, set him to 0. He's gonna hit a lot harder, have more health. Zeal 2, set her to 45, more challenge. Aussie Trio, fairly hard boss overall. In vanilla, it's like level 38. We set it to 32 because we don't want it to be like trivial. So I mean, if you have trouble with this boss, you feel like maybe we've made the wrong call, you could set it to 45, make it a lot easier. Black Tyranno, pretty strong for a level 20 boss, if I'm being honest. Like at that point in the game, even Nisbel 2 is like level 26 or something. Your party, they've already done Magus, they're about to head to Zeal, they might be like 25, 30. Doesn't necessarily correlate. Black Tyranno will be at his vanilla level of power at 20 scaling. For better or worse, typically, this just means like he's a fairly challenging boss. The fire hits hard. He's got more HP. Relative to other bosses. So we do like that. We like that getting the Zeal is a challenge. Black Tyranno, Magus, they both unlock Zeal, so it's not necessarily a bad thing that they're challenging. You know what the boss is. You know what they're gonna throw at you. You can pre-prep, get your red mails. Have like a good plan how you're gonna do damage to the boss, get him down quicker. But again, if you're somebody like maybe you don't agree with the philosophy that those bosses should be a bit of a challenge to unlock, the mid to late game, turn up the level. They'll be easier. Son of Sun, notably, default in the vanilla game is level 40. You can go online and look up like these values, or you can open up the ROM in Temporal Flux with the Fiend Crafter add-on. Look at it that way. But Son of Sun in the vanilla game, it will one-shot you if you're not wearing resistance gear, absorb gear. In the context of the randomizer, that's problematic. You may see him as your second boss. You might not have fire resist, fire absorb. You might get killed by the flare, or brought down to like 5 HP and killed by the laser. So we've actually made this boss easier. It's level 43. That's enough to make the boss reasonable while still not being trivial. Um, Still, especially for like a new player, very frustrating. So if you're not looking for like a challenge there, turn it up to like 50. It'll be significantly easier. Uh, our series, another notable one in the vanilla game, it's level 10. However, um, in the vanilla game, it's kind of a special circumstance. You know, you fight them with two party members. You've got no AoE, got line damage and cyclone, or even like Marl, you've only got cyclone as far as like multi-target attacks. So in the randomizer, you've got strong gear, strong armor, strong weapons. You've got AoE techs. You've got a lot of tools, free party members that you don't have in the vanilla game. So we've turned this down from 10 to 5. And even doing that, in most situations, they're not a very hard boss. So, I mean, this just introduces the possibility of them being scary. If you don't want a challenge from this boss, set it back to 10. It'll be fine. 99% of the time, this boss is not going to be a problem. You're going to have your AoE. You're going to kill them in like 2 hits before they even attack, whatever. I'm not going to go through like the full script of the boss, but just know that if you do find them early game, you're lacking AoE, you're lacking the ability to one shot them. There are going to be some things you run into. They're going to do a lot of damage to you. They're going to counterattack you. Um, in that situation, it might be frustrating, especially if you're coming from like the vanilla game or Jets of Time, where they're not necessarily all that scary with the tools you've got. You can set them to 10. Nobody's gonna notice. Nobody's gonna judge. Um, whatever. So we have made a few other minor adjustments to some of the other bosses, just again because the scaling interactions may have made them harder or easier than what you might expect. We tend to go for an experience where if you got like a little bit more power than normal, they're not necessarily threatening, but you still have to like pay attention to mechanics. You may have to heal or something once in a while, or if you're way lower level than the scaling, or your gear's not that great, your damage output's not that great. They may present more of a challenge. They may take longer, but most of the time, if you play your cards right, they're still beatable. Very rare that you play well and you have to like reset out of a dungeon. Usually that happens. It's like a situation where you fight Nizbel, but you don't have like the ability to shock the boss. Red Knight, you can't lower the defenses, whatever. Most other situations, unless you're just so low level relative to the boss that they one shot you, you can usually get through. Being under leveled, it's a risky play. There's potential upside, like you get levels really fast. You progress through the game quicker. But on the flip side, you might run into a situation where you can't do a boss very well, whatever. Um, you just kind of find the way you want to play. Um, like I said, you think a boss is too hard or too easy, you can play with this setting. You don't have to. It's optional, more advanced. Meant for people that have played a few seeds, have a good idea of how they feel about things. So as far as options, that's basically it. Um, like I said, you can click these presets and it'll auto populate the options for those. We don't have a lot of presets. We do on the Discord. A lot of the time we generate through the bot. We'll post a settings file for that. So if you see like a certain, a certain kind of run you like a Chrono Sanity entrance rando, um, or just anything else that seems appealing, just go ahead, hop on Discord, download that settings file, click this button. We can load up, say, um, so I did this one, kind of a convoluted name, but I just want to keep track of like, the main bullet points when I make a settings file. So it'll auto load all this stuff. So like we go over to the shops tab and it'll be, the shop settings that I set, not buyable items. I take a lot of the crap starter gear out, race log, Yakra key, just junk. I keep the key items purchasable just because I like that. On the settings file, I set it to max prices, so everything's 65,000. No randomization on the price. What else was on there? Oops. So it had a Daltonized Magus, dual tech Magus. I think I had my loot options set to 75 vanilla, 25 random. So one thing you can do, you can also isolate like certain settings, like say there's like a certain scheme of like key items and key item checks you like. Like we've got one mode called P Sanity. What the P stands for, open to interpretation. It could be power or phone or poop. I like poop. What that does, it's essentially it adds like 20 extra key item checks and adds like 20 high-end pieces of gear to the loot pool. So it kind of, or the key item pool rather. So it kind of mixes things up. You've got like 40 checks, about a 50-50 shot that any given check is a key item or a piece of ultimate gear. Really challenges you like on the routing of things. A lot of the extra checks are more optional places. Some of them are just chests, like there's one at the end of the sewers. The Laruba Rock is one. The secret rooms in Zeal, the bridge, the hunting range new, the King's Trial stuff, and all the associated checks that spring from that. Just really really expanding what your routing potentially could be. We are going to do a video demonstrating that pretty soon. But that's just one example. So what you can do, you can take, the file for that, extract like the key item spot settings and the additional key item settings, put them in a file by themselves. Then, build whatever settings you want. Go ahead and load this up and say, like, I've got the file ready, obviously, psand base. So what that'll do, it'll keep every single setting that you've set here, except for the ones that are explicitly in this file. So you can build like, whatever kind of settings you want, then apply like specific settings on top of that. So we go over to the, where is it? The logic options here. And we'll see we've got additional key items, prism specs, black rock, blue rock, silver rock, white rock, gold rock. All this really good stuff. We go to forced spots. You can see we've got additional key item checks, bromide, lab 32, sewers, hunting range, Ozzy's fort. Just really putting candy all over the place. A lot of this stuff is a little bit quicker than like your typical dungeon. So, I mean, like in terms of checks per minute, this kind of mode is pretty quick. Not necessarily, faster finish time, but you'll find a lot of interesting stuff. Um, a lot more considerations for routing. Um, you can stack up like bromide and cathedral. Um, the Xenon bridge, the chef. Knock all that out all in one go. Just if you've got the right setup for it. You can obviously pair this with like an open world kind of setting too. So, you could start with flight, pop into the sewers, grab a quick check there. Really, really just get creative with it. There's a lot of options. It all interacts pretty well together. You just you can kind of build whatever you want. Options for objectives, like say you know uh, again using like a Jets of Time example. If you wanted to, what kind of secondary mode do we have there? We've got like Legacy of Cyrus, where the goal is essentially complete Ozzy's fort, complete Magus Castle, do the Cyrus grave. So you can go look at like the objective variables. You can set those to your objectives. Um, you can kind of force it to be like in a certain sequence, even by making like say Ozzy's fort. Say Ozzy's fort. Maybe make that like level 50, so it's something you realistically can only do in the end game. Um, bear in mind, if you're on dynamic scaling, this is in addition to your scaling level. However, it will cap out at your max scaling. So, if you're scaling level 45, anything from 5 to 50, it'll just set the dungeon to level 50. So you can force that to be like the last check. Um, I mean, you could do it out of sequence, I guess, but realistically, it's not going to work that way. You can make Magus Castle like say 5 levels higher than your scaling. It'll make it quite challenging. Um, you get creative with it. Um, Also with scaling, you can set it to no scaling whatsoever, or set it to let's say keep it on progression, but make nothing at all give scaling. So what this will do, you'll start scaling level 1, but it won't increase from bosses, quests, key items, objectives, characters. And something you can do with this, perhaps a little bit dangerous. You can make it more vanilla-like. Say I've got like a settings file for this somewhere, so see if I can find it. Okay, so I made a joke mode. Not necessarily a joke, but just like as a fun example. I call it Legs of Laura. So the goal of this, it's centered around Luca and Robo. It's kind of like in the same spirit as Legacy of Cyrus, just built custom using only settings. It's not like a preset thing on the randomizer. You can just make this yourself. Limited by your creativity. So I've set it to all this stuff just requires all the objectives, but pretty soon, I don't know what the timeline is, but we'll get like an objectives auto win kind of setting, which is which is really my intention with it. You know, once you've completed all these objectives, you win. That's why it's set to 7. There's 6 objectives. You can't actually do any of this stuff. Um, so what we've got, like I said, Luca and Robo focused. Chrono Trial. Luca breaks him out of prison, unless there's a character there, but you know, spiritually, it's a Luca check. Factory Ruins requires Robo. You know, it's part of Robo's contribution to saving the world. Luca fixes Robo. Spiritually good. Sunken Desert. It's a check that requires both Robo and Luca. You know, they kind of save the environment, with the bonus that at the end, Luca has the opportunity to save her mom's legs, which is of course the name of the mode, Legs of Laura. Um, so Sun Palace, another Luca oriented check here. She's the one that's got all like the fire gear. She's the one that gets like the main benefit from the Moonstone. Additionally, Charge Moonstone requires Luca. That's, you know, how she gets her Wonder Shot, how you get your Sun Specs. Genodome, Robo oriented, essentially saving mankind from extinction. So I have this set to where, you know, I do all these objectives. So what I've done, if I can find the options here. So I did do, you know, that thing I was talking about where nothing gives scaling. So what I do instead, I set a mod for every location. It's more or less like vanilla coded. So like early game stuff will be low level. Cathedral's level 6, Denadoro 16, Death Peak 37, Sewers 8, that kind of thing. So it's basically like vanilla power levels based on location. Um, um, with some exceptions. Sunken Desert, I made it level 50. In vanilla, it's 30, but because, you know, that's essentially like part of the end game of this mode, I've made it, you know, as high level as I can make it. So that'll be like one of the final bosses. Genodome level 45. Mother Brain also very scary. Sun Palace level 40. Factory, I've made it level 30, just because, you know, it's an objective. It's kind of part of the go mode, so to speak. Chrono Trial, I've made it level 20. So like you kind of start off without the ability to do the objectives. You know, you've got to find your Luca, Robo, Moonstone, all that stuff. And you can't just like walk into these places and one shot everything. Like you've got to actually do some other checks, gear up, level up. Like I said, no scaling, so you can, if you're feeling bold, you know, go into a higher level area, try to do some grinding there to kind of get a head start. Different dynamic than, you know, the scaling. Um, not something that's like been tested largely, but um, you know, just an example of like a cute thing you can do. So I've got some starter rewards. Epoch, Desert is open if you're so bold. Flight, Future, Omen. So it's an open world kind of thing. A little bit Jets coded, but you know, without like the restrictions on time periods. So if you want to go to Mount Woe at the start, you can do that. Um, you know, it's up to you. Um, so I also for this mode, as an example, I put the mutants in the Black Omen just so, you know, when we shuffle, we don't actually run into these enemies. Not necessarily in the spirit of the mode. It's, you know, built around stuff that's pre-end game, you know, up to like the side quests. Should be a Terra mutant here too, now that I think about it. Anyway, not important. These bosses will be vanilla. Well, I guess this was actually like the settings I was doing earlier, but the boss pool, I've got Red Knight is not in the boss pool. Son of Sun, not in the boss pool. Mother Brain, not in the boss pool. Dragon Tank, not in the boss pool. R series, also not. So what I mean by this is, you're not going to find these bosses in other locations. They should presumably be in their vanilla spots. So you go to Genodome, you're gonna find a level 45 Mother Brain. You go to Desert, you're gonna find a level 50 Red Knight. Scary enemies. R series level 20, Son of Sun level 40. Whatever else, Dragon Tank level 20. I don't know if I said that or not. So for your objectives, at least, you know what you're up against. You know what prep you need to do. Everything else, shuffled bosses, it's fine. Additionally, one other thing I did for this mode, if I can find it, yeah, treasure options. I do the 75 vanilla, 25 random shuffle thing. I'm mostly okay with that. So for good loot, I've selected, some choice Luca and Robo equipment, your wonder shots, your arms, Luca's armor stuff. And what I've done with those 6 items, I've selected six relevant locations, I think. Luca Wonder Shot, Sunshades, the factory generator, the Genodome boss, the prison lunch bag, the Sunken Desert power tab. So these 6 locations will have one of these 6 items. So, as you're playing through this, there's no mandate that you play Luca and Robo. However, as you're completing objectives, you will get stuff that makes them good. So it will be very attractive to use them. You do logically need them to complete the seed anyway. So there's a good incentive structure there. There's some other stuff that I did with this mode, but that's kind of the gist of it. So this has been like 3 hours. Just a brief overview. Going over the basics. Not getting too crazy with it. I think that's plenty of information to chew on. Get a good understanding of the different options, the implications of those options. Have fun.